Imagine paying full price for first-class treatment, only to be secretly judged the moment you walk through the door. What if I told you that some of the world's most respected airlines have a hidden policy that determines your worth based on how you look? Today's story will make you question everything you thought you knew about customer service. When Julia Montgomery, wife of billionaire airline CEO Alexander Montgomery, started receiving disturbing customer complaints, she made a decision that would change everything. Armed with hidden recording devices and her background as an investigative journalist, she did something unthinkable. She went undercover on her own husband's airline. What she discovered was a systematic culture of discrimination that went far beyond rude employees. This was corporate policy disguised as customer service excellence. The sleek glass doors of Kennedy International Airport opened as Julia adjusted her deliberately worn backpack. Auburn hair pulled back, no makeup, old jeans, and scuffed sneakers. No one would guess this modest-looking woman was married to Alexander Montgomery, founder and CEO of Skyline Airways. Julia checked her phone one last time. Voice recorder already running. 3 new complaints had arrived that morning, all following the same disturbing pattern. First-class tickets mysteriously downgraded. Passengers with insufficient appearance moved to economy. The dinner conversation that sparked this mission replayed in her mind. "Alex, have you noticed these complaints?" she'd asked, sliding a folder across their table. He'd barely looked up from his paperwork. "HR handles customer service, Jules. I trust my team." "Your team hasn't been on the ground floor in years," she'd replied, her journalist instincts prickling. Something's changed in the culture. Alex had kissed her forehead dismissively. "If it bothers you so much, why don't you look into it? You're still the best investigative mind I know." He'd meant it as a placating comment. Julia Montgomery, who had once spent 6 months undercover exposing pharmaceutical corruption, heard it as an assignment. Stepping into the gleaming Skyline terminal, Julia became Alexandra Jules Whitaker, her maiden name on a first-class ticket purchased with cash. No frequent flyer number, no digital footprint connecting her to the Montgomery empire. The discrimination started immediately. A Skyline employee walked past an elderly woman struggling with her carry-on, then eagerly assisted a man in an expensive suit. Julia helped the woman herself. "Thank you, dear," the woman said. "Not like the old days when they jumped to help you, is it?" At check-in, Julia activated her recording device. The well-dressed couple ahead received enthusiastic smiles and offers of champagne. An elderly gentleman in a simple sweater was treated with barely concealed impatience. Miss Whitaker, the airline representative, Melissa, waited with visible impatience. Her expression shifted as she assessed Julia's appearance. The slight downturn at her mouth spoke volumes. "You're in first class?" The tone carried thinly veiled skepticism. "Yes," Julia replied simply, adding nervous energy. "It's my first time." Melissa turned to her supervisor. Linda Peterson. Their whispered conversation was just low enough that Julia couldn't hear the words, but their glances told the story. Miss Whitaker, I'm afraid there's been a slight issue with your booking, Linda announced with a practiced smile. We have an overbooking in first class. We'll need to reassign you to economy based on loyalty status. But I paid for first class, Julia protested. Yes, and you'll receive a partial refund. Perhaps next time. Behind Linda, Julia caught Melissa whispering to another colleague. No entry for the poor. They should stick to budget airlines. The evidence she needed had just been handed to her. Minutes later, a well-dressed businessman approached. Linda's entire demeanor transformed. Genuine smiles, eager assistance, and mysteriously, an available first-class seat that hadn't existed moments before. Boarding revealed the full scope of the discrimination. Economy passengers were told overhead space was full, while first-class passengers had their bags personally stowed. Julia heard a gate agent mutter, "Economy passengers think they deserve first-class treatment." On board, the contrast was stark. First class gleamed with soft lighting and attentive service. Economy felt like a different airline entirely. Harsh lighting, cramped spaces, and dismissive flight attendants. Julia found herself seated next to Margaret Whitfield, a philanthropist who'd been flying with Skyline since its inception. They did it to you too, didn't they? Margaret asked knowingly. I saw them downgrade you. Happens to me all the time now. I've learned to bring proof. Photographs with celebrities, references to my family foundation. Isn't that ridiculous? Having to prove I belong? Julia's contact inside Skyline's corporate office sent a devastating text. Found internal memo from Winters. Project Appearance Matters implemented last year. Training materials explicitly instruct staff to allocate service based on perceived customer value, linked to bonus structures. This wasn't prejudiced employees. This was systematic discrimination, codified in company policy and incentivized with financial rewards. During the flight, the discrimination continued. Water requests ignored, call buttons unanswered, medical assistance delayed, all while first-class passengers received immediate, enthusiastic service. Julia documented everything, building an airtight case against the company her husband had built on principles of dignity and respect for all passengers. An hour before landing, Julia's cover was blown. Caroline Winters, Skyline's chief of customer experience, was on the flight and had discovered Julia's fake identity. Stay in your seats, Caroline commanded as they landed. Security situation. She marched to Julia's row. Identity fraud is a federal offense, she announced loudly. Attempting to fly under a false name. My ID matched my boarding pass, Julia replied calmly. The name is legally mine, Alexandra Jules Whitaker. No fraud involved. You deliberately misrepresented yourself. Julia stood slowly. Ms. Winters, I've been recording since I entered the terminal this morning. Every interaction, every comment, every example of Skyline's Project Appearance Matters directive in action. Caroline blanched. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? the internal policy instructing staff to judge customers by appearance, the bonus structure rewarding employees who maintain class distinctions. "Who are you?" Caroline demanded, though her tone suggested she already suspected. Julia straightened to her full height. "My name is Julia Montgomery. And yes, that Montgomery. I believe you know my husband, Alexander, the founder and CEO of Skyline Airways." The cabin erupted. Smartphones captured every moment as passengers shared their own stories of discrimination. A flight attendant stepped forward, trembling. "It's true. We were told to categorize passengers by appearance, visual value assessment, they called it. They track our premium service ratio. If we're too balanced in our treatment, we get reprimanded." Julia addressed the cabin. "My investigation isn't about punishing employees. This is about systems that corrupt good people by incentivizing wrong behaviors." The footage was online before they deplaned. Alexander texted, "Just saw footage from the plane. Why didn't you tell me? Coming to Chicago tonight. We have work to do." 3 weeks later, Julia stood before a packed auditorium at Skyline Airways headquarters. Alexander beside her. They announced sweeping changes. Project Appearance Matters terminated. Discriminatory bonus structures eliminated. New service metrics focusing on equal treatment. Comprehensive retraining for all staff. Passenger Dignity Committee established. Premium passengers deserve enhanced comfort and amenities, Julia explained. What they don't deserve is more human dignity or basic respect. The difference should be in the product, not in how we value the person. Caroline Winters, given a choice between resignation or helping fix the system she'd corrupted, chose redemption. "I convinced myself I was maximizing revenue, but I lost sight of the human cost." 6 months later, Julia took the same flight route. The changes were immediately visible. No more visible separation between passenger classes. Courteous boarding for all, and genuine service regardless of appearance. Other airlines noticed. Competing carriers announced their own dignity initiatives. The conversation had begun. What happened at Skyline isn't just about air travel, Julia reflected. It's about how easily we categorize people, how quickly we decide who deserves our best selves based on superficial things. In an age where dignity sometimes seemed reserved for the privileged few, the true revolution was remembering that it belonged to everyone, regardless of what they wore, how they looked, or where they sat on the plane. This investigation revealed uncomfortable truths about how we judge worth based on appearance. Every industry, every interaction, every moment we choose to see someone's humanity over their appearance is an opportunity for change. Have you ever been judged by how you look rather than who you are? Have you caught yourself making assumptions about others based on their appearance? Share your story in the comments below. True worth isn't measured in designer clothes or status symbols, but in how we treat each other when no one is watching. And especially when everyone is. Because at the end of the day, dignity shouldn't be a luxury item. It should be standard service for every human being. What did you think of Julia's undercover investigation? Hit that subscribe button and share your own experiences with being judged by appearance. Tomorrow, we'll explore another story that challenges how we see the world around us.